Thank you. Thank you very much. I couldn't have said that better myself. All right, who's having fun tonight? Yeah, a few people. There's about 3 people in the room. Well, I'm having a great time. I'm in my element. I love being up here chatting to you, so I'm having fun. So we're talking about wellness tonight, talking about wellness in 2020. How's 2020 going? Uh-huh. So it was January, and I was sitting in a cafe in Cornwall Park with my family, sipping on my cup of tea. And as I was sipping on my cup of tea, outside the sky started to turn orange. Does anyone remember? So the sky was turning orange because there were bushfires in Aussie. And it was having such an impact that by the time I finished that cup of tea and we left, the sky was nearly red. Just a couple of weeks later, there were floods. There were storms across all of US, across Australia, storms and flooding. Just a couple of weeks later, there was an earthquake in Turkey. Just a couple of weeks later, do you remember that locust plague in Africa? I mean, how strange is that? 2020 is quite the year. I haven't even gotten on to coronavirus, to rioting, or the National Party. This is such a year. Are you okay? Someone nearly lost their drink. And as I get up every day, I'm reminded about how everything can change in an instant. I mean, lockdown has just been such a different experience. So I'm reminded that everything can change, and I'm also reminded of the journey that I've been on in life. So I learnt this lesson firsthand when I was really young. I was 12 years old. I was a competitive gymnast, and I spent my life training and dreaming about going to the Olympics. All I wanted to do was swing on those bars and get a gold medal. And I trained really hard, and I'd done pretty well for myself. I got to the national champs, and they were coming up on Saturday morning. But it was Wednesday before the Saturday morning, and I could not be bothered. Oh, I just felt so tired and over it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have the night off. So I had an early night, had some food, got into bed, settled down, had an early night, and went to sleep really fast. A couple of hours later, I woke up, and the room was dark, and the house was quiet, and I had this headache. I had this really bad headache, and I could pinpoint the pain right here. And as I lay there in the dark, in my bedroom, thinking about the pain, consumed by this pain, I realised that something was totally wrong. Does anyone here have kids? A couple of half-raised hand. Is that because you're not sure whether you have kids, or you're not sure you should admit that the kids that you do have are yours? Yeah. Well, either way, some of us know that the reason we get out of bed in the morning is for our kids. Some of us know the reason we get out of bed freaking early in the morning is for our kids. And that was me. I was always up early, bouncing around the house, making noise, oblivious to the people sleeping. So you can imagine my parents' concern when it's 7:30 in the morning and I'm still fast asleep. By 8 o'clock and they can't wake me up, they start to worry. 9 o'clock and the doctor comes round and he comes into my bedroom. He comes down and he gives me a nudge. He can't wake me up either. He does a few tests, and then it's all on, get the girl to hospital. Within 1 hour, I was in Auckland Hospital having brain surgery. I had an AVM on my brain, an arterial venous malformation. What this means in everyday terms, if you're not a technical person or have been through med school, is that basically my brain hadn't formed correctly before I was born. It meant that there was a tangle of blood vessels in my brain, and the blood flow was starting to build and create pressure. What normally happens in this situation is that if the blood pressure builds, the brain will burst, the brain will bleed, and the person will die. So I don't know whether you've spoken to me yet, but I am not someone who does things in halves. So that's what I did. I had a full brain bleed, and I died on the operating table. Yeah, pretty much. But it's a great story because here I am. It's a happy story. Don't be sad. I'm here today to tell you my story, and I love it. But what took me from being there in a bed without being able to do a lot of things to where I am today is one key thing. I'm sure you can appreciate when I woke up from that coma that I had a whole new world to step into. For starters, I had this amazing haircut. It was really short on one side and really long on the other. I had a surgical scar, and I say step into my new life quite lightly because I was also now completely paralysed down one side of my body and nothing worked. I learnt from going from that place where doctors were telling me that maybe I'd never walk again, that the seizures might not stop, that I might not be able to retain information, that I may live a very unnormal life, to where I am today based on one principle. The principle that things constantly change, that the little things today create the big things tomorrow. So what we focus on today is what we're creating for tomorrow. Things are going to change no matter what we do. So I'd like a raise of hands. Who has been affected by COVID? Yeah, there's not so many half-raised hands now, are there? Those hands are right up. I've been affected by COVID. I personally have been affected by COVID. And what I learn as I get out of bed every day, things constantly change. But if we can identify where we are, where we want to be, the smallest things can create the biggest things. It's all about coming back and understanding that in our circumstances, we might not have the full power. But we do have the power in the smallest parts of those circumstances. Often it's about listening to what's going on inside of us, what our heart is telling us. What do we want to do in our life? What are we supposed to be doing with our moments? There is so much I could tell you. I've given you that much of a very large story of a lot of learnings. But if there's one thing that I want to share with you tonight, things are constantly changing. It's the little things that make the big things, and that we have the power to choose what we focus on. Thank you.